Something shocking is happening across America. In cities once impossible to afford, rents are suddenly falling. Empty units are rising fast and landlords are scrambling. What caused this unexpected collapse? Number 10, Austin, Texas. Austin wasn't supposed to slow down. For years, Austin represented everything people wanted in a modern American city. It had tech jobs, cultural energy, and a reputation for opportunity. When remote work became common, thousands of workers from expensive cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles packed their bags and moved to Austin, convinced they had found the perfect balance between affordability and success. Landlords quickly realized they had the advantage. Apartments filled almost instantly. Rent increased aggressively, and renters still signed leases without hesitation. Downtown towers filled with young professionals earning high salaries. Developers saw this demand and responded with confidence. Construction projects launched across the city. Cranes filled the skyline and new luxury apartment buildings appeared everywhere. At the time, nobody thought Austin could overshoot demand. Every indicator pointed in one direction. But construction takes time, and by the time many of those new buildings were finally ready, the environment had changed. Tech layoffs slowed the arrival of new high-income renters. Some workers who already lived in Austin started thinking more carefully about expenses. Instead of upgrading apartments, many stayed where they were or chose cheaper options. Suddenly, buildings that once had waiting lists had empty units sitting quietly. Leasing managers who once had complete control began offering incentives again. Free rent returned, deposits were reduced, landlords who expected unlimited growth were now adjusting to a different reality. Austin didn't disappear. It didn't fail. But it stopped behaving like the unstoppable market everyone believed it was. And that same shift was quietly spreading to other cities. Number 9, Miami, Florida. Miami became one of the most talked about cities during the housing surge. It attracted attention from everywhere. Remote workers arrived with high salaries. Investors purchased luxury condos, expecting strong returns. International buyers saw Miami as both a lifestyle destination and a financial opportunity. For several years, demand felt endless. Apartments rented quickly. Rent increased dramatically. Landlords believed the city had entered a permanent new phase of growth. But beneath the surface, the financial math began changing. Owning property became more expensive. Insurance costs increased sharply, especially for waterfront buildings. Maintenance expenses rose across the board. Investors who once enjoyed predictable profits now faced tighter margins. At the same time, demand softened. Some remote workers left, others chose more affordable cities. New renters arrived at a slower pace. Units that once rented immediately now stayed available longer. Buildings that had never needed incentives began offering them. Landlords introduced flexible lease terms and reduced pricing to attract tenants. Miami still looked strong from the outside. The skyline remained impressive. The lifestyle remained desirable. But inside the rental market, the balance had shifted, and Atlanta was about to reveal just how common this shift had become. Number 8. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta built its reputation on steady growth. It offered job opportunities, relatively affordable housing, and a strong economy. People moved there believing they could build stable futures. Investors saw Atlanta as a safe bet. Developers responded by building aggressively. Apartment complexes expanded across the metro area. Luxury units dominated new construction because investors believed renters would continue upgrading. For a while, those assumptions held true. But housing markets don't just depend on confidence. They depend on timing and balance. By 2025, Atlanta had more apartments available than renters actively searching. Vacancy rates began rising. Landlords who once raised rent easily now faced competition from newer buildings offering better deals. Instead of increasing prices, many landlords adjusted downward to stay competitive. Incentives returned. Renters gained leverage. Atlanta remained a strong city economically, but its housing market had clearly entered a different phase. And Las Vegas was about to show how investor expectations can change even faster. Number 7. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas attracted investors because it had everything they wanted: population growth, lower costs compared to coastal cities, and strong rental demand. Many believed the city would continue expanding rapidly. Investors purchased properties expecting reliable rental income. Short-term rentals became extremely popular. Owners believed tourism and migration would provide constant demand. But housing markets don't operate in isolation. Tourism patterns shifted. Some investors experienced less predictable income from short-term rentals. Many moved properties into the long-term rental market to stabilize earnings. This increased supply significantly. Renters suddenly had more choices than before. Landlords faced more competition. Instead of raising prices, many began adjusting downward to attract tenants. Investors who once expected easy returns now faced slower income growth. Las Vegas reminded everyone that housing markets are influenced by many forces, and even strong growth can pause. Phoenix would soon demonstrate the same pattern on an even larger scale. Number 6. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix became one of the fastest growing cities in America. Migration fueled housing demand. Developers built aggressively, confident the city could absorb unlimited growth. New apartment complexes appeared across the metro area. For several years, demand remained strong. But construction continued even after migration slowed, and thousands of new units entered the market within a short period. Renters suddenly had more options than they'd had in years. Landlords who once controlled pricing now competed for tenants. Incentives returned. Flexible lease terms became more common. Investors began adjusting expectations. If you want to stay ahead of trends like this and understand where housing markets are heading next, subscribe now, because the next cities reveal how widespread this shift really is. Dallas was next. Number 5. Dallas, Texas. Dallas built its identity around expansion. Companies relocated headquarters, workers moved there for opportunity, developers built modern apartment complexes expecting strong demand. Luxury units dominated new construction because investors believed renters would continue upgrading. But renter behavior changed. Some renters prioritized affordability, others delayed moving or chose smaller apartments. Vacancy rates increased. Landlords adjusted pricing and introduced incentives. Dallas remained economically strong, but its housing market had clearly entered a more competitive phase. Boise showed how quickly markets could transition. Number 4. Boise, Idaho. Boise experienced explosive growth during the remote work migration. People moved there seeking affordability and lifestyle improvements. Housing demand increased rapidly. Developers built aggressively to keep up, but migration slowed. New apartments continued opening anyway. Vacancies increased. Landlords adjusted pricing to attract tenants. Boise demonstrated how quickly housing markets can transition when demand shifts. Seattle revealed how deeply employment affects housing demand. Number 3, Seattle, Washington. Seattle's housing market depended heavily on tech industry growth. High salaries supported high rent levels. Developers built aggressively expecting continued demand, but hiring slowed across major companies. Migration decreased. Some workers relocated to more affordable cities. Vacancies increased. Landlords adjusted pricing and offered incentives. Seattle showed how closely housing markets follow employment trends. San Francisco revealed the most dramatic example of this shift. Number 2, San Francisco, California. San Francisco once represented the peak of housing demand. Living there meant access to career opportunities and innovation, but remote work changed location priorities. Workers discovered they could live elsewhere while maintaining careers. Migration patterns shifted, demand softened, vacancies increased, landlords adjusted pricing and offered incentives. San Francisco demonstrated how work flexibility reshaped housing markets. And finally, New York. Number 1, New York City. New York City built its identity on constant demand. Apartments are always filled, renters always arrived. But even New York experienced adjustment. Vacancies increased, incentives returned, renters gained negotiating power. Developers adapted to changing demand. New York remained influential, but its housing market reflected the same forces affecting cities nationwide. Across America, housing markets are entering a new phase. For years, landlords controlled pricing. Demand remained strong, rent increased rapidly. But markets evolve. Supply and demand always find balance. Renters now have more leverage than they've had in years. Some cities will recover quickly, others will take longer. But the biggest question isn't what already happened, it's what happens next. Which city do you think will recover fastest? And which city could continue struggling? Comment below and watch the next video to see which housing markets are rising while others slow down.